we have a revenue and net profit, and we want to calculate profit margin here. Okay, so I have a formula here already, and what it is doing it is dividing the net profit by the total revenue so that it gives us the profit margin of 20% or 0.2. So when I move this down, I move the formula down, what happens is that it is giving me an error, and the error is that I am trying to divide the value by a 0, so it is a division by 0 error. Okay, so we need to be sure, like leaving this like this is not a good idea, because with errors it is not a good presentation. So we want to change it so that it does not give us errors, it does not show us errors, or let's say we want to show more friendly errors here. Okay, so let's say I can add a formula here that the formula is if error. Okay, so and what this function does is it can give you a message if there was an error in calculation, and I can just close the original formula inside this formula, and it gives me an optional parameter. So you see here are two parameters, like in the previous, in the rank function there was also we use two parameters, but here the second parameter is optional, and these square brackets actually tell us that we don't have to specify it, but we can or may specify it. So I can add a comma and write division by 0. Okay, and inverted commas close. So in Excel or in Google Sheets, whenever you're writing text in a formula, whenever you're writing numbers, you can simply write them, no problem. But whenever you're writing text like a name or words, English sentences, so you always have to enclose them in inverted commas like this. Okay, so let's say division by 0 error, and we can close this and press enter. So if now I drag this formula down, so instead of that red highlight and that nagging error message, it is telling me that there is a division by 0 error. Or we can simply ignore this and write 0 here. Let's say in the formula we can write 0 so that if we are doing any further calculations, so those are not disturbed. Or what we can do is we can leave a blank string. A blank string is denoted by two inverted commas, quotation marks, start and close without anything in between. So this is an empty string, and the cell remains blank, and we can now use it for any further calculations if we want. Okay, so so this is if error, or there is another function that says that is called ISERROR. And ISERROR returns true or false if there is an error. So on the basis of that true and false, you can do any further calculation, any further decision making if you want. And for making decisions, we can use conditional formulas. That is our fourth sheet. So for example, here in this scenario, we have a funding request. We have multiple funding requests, and we have a list of available budgets. So let's say we want to calculate if the funding can be approved or rejected. Okay, and to do that, we need to use a formula. It's called if. So the if formula takes 3 parameters, and the first parameter is a logical expression. The logical expression is something that can return true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1 in computational terms. Okay, so basically here you can compare things, and on the basis of that comparison, there can be 2 scenarios, either true or false. So for example, we can compare it. Let's say if this value is greater than this one, Okay, and this expression actually, let's remove this and let's use this cell to see. We can use logical operators like greater than or less than symbol or equal symbol, just like that, to compare values in Google Sheets. So for example, if I enter this, it will tell me that both values are not equal. So the expression is false. The expression is running false. Similarly, I can use a greater than symbol, and this tells me true, so that this value is greater than this value. Similarly, I can use a less than symbol or less than or equal to symbol, combine two symbols to check if the value is less than or equal. So it is returning false. So these are called logical operators. So we can use these logical expressions in our if formula to check if the available budget is greater than the funding request. And if the value is true, then we can write accepted, or we can alternatively, if the available budget is less than or let's say is less than in this scenario, so we can say that the request is rejected. Okay, and we can close this and press enter. So in this case, 60,000 is greater than 50,000, so it is accepted. But as I drag it down, so some of the requests are accepted while others are rejected. Okay, so we can also check for errors in this. Like in our previous sheet, we can use in this case we were dividing the values, so we can use if, and we can check if both of the values are greater than 0. And how I can check that? Let's remove this. If this is greater than 0, and we can enclose this here. And since we are using, we need to determine two values, so we need another formula. This is called OR. And as you can notice that I'm using OR inside the if bracket. So basically, I am nesting one formula inside another formula. So I am enclosing one inside the other. So basically, it is calculated the way in mathematics, if you have a bracket inside another one, so the inner bracket is resolved first and then the outer bracket is resolved. So similarly, this OR formula will be calculated first and then its result will be passed to if. So in this for, I am going to check two things. What? I want to check this is greater than 0 and this is greater than 0. Okay, sorry, instead of or, I need to make sure that both of them are greater than 0. So instead of or, I am using the AND function. So the AND makes sure that both of the values are true, and the OR function returns if one of the values, this one or this one, is true. So basically, AND will return true when both of the values are true. So this is our condition, and I can simply copy this to over here as a separate function and see what is the result. So here both values are greater than 0, and when I drag it down, so this one is false and this one is false. Okay, so both I can copy both of these conditions inside my original if, and if both conditions are true, then I want to do this calculation. Otherwise, I don't want to do anything. So I leave in the else part, I leave a double quotes here. So when I press enter and move it down, so this time it is not calculating the values which are less than or equal to 0. Okay, so only those values are being calculated which were, let's say, sold for a profit. Okay, so this is how you can, there are two things. You can nest one formula inside another, you can enclose one formula inside another, and there are usually multiple ways of solving the same problem. So you can either use if error, or you can use if with certain conditions to make sure that the values are being calculated correctly.